Three, Travel and Things in association with Sun Destinations present In Conversation With. I am your host, David Batsoffen, and my guest today, all the way from over there, is a man who I have followed for the longest time, Wolf Avni. Wolf, good afternoon and welcome to you.
Good afternoon, David, and thank you for your time.
It's only a pleasure. I've been following your work for the longest time on Facebook. I don't want to say that I've stalked you on Facebook, but every time your pictures have come up, I've quietly commented to myself because I love your images. And when I asked you to send me images for our chat today, this was the first one that popped up. So, what is this all about? Were these your beginnings in photography?
David, by the time this came along, I'd already traveled a long and convoluted photographic road. What we're looking at there is a picture I shot in the early 80s for NCR in a triple garage in Saxonwold, which is where I had my studio at that
Right.
time. Long before there was such a thing as digital photography or the algorithms that allow programs like Lightroom and Photoshop and Capture and all the host of programs that came
Mm,
along. We used to create images in first in our mind and then in camera. So what we're looking at there, that would have been a single transparency, a slide
right.
shot on a four by five camera,
Mm.
and it's five exposures on top of each other.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, when people say to me, "Has that image been photoshopped?" After I've controlled my apoplexia, I kind of go, "Well, dude, the whole world is photoshopped."
But it must be
Um,
it must have been very difficult for that, Wolf, because you don't really, in the olden days with films or with transparencies, you didn't really know what you were getting until you saw the final image. It's not like digital, which is instantaneous.
well, this is true and not true. We had Polaroid backs
Oh,
for a lot
true
of the
enough.
studio equipment,
Yeah,
and you could always pull a poly, as we used to say.
yeah.
And while it didn't give you the definition or what they now call dynamic range and the tonal
Hmm.
gradient, it would certainly let you know if there was an obvious bloop. Like,
Yeah.
for instance, my stars there superimposed on top of the computer or the planets.
Mm. Okay.
So there were checks and balances. And
Yeah.
then the other thing is, it was like slow food. It was slow photography. A shoot like this you're looking at 18 hours.
I was going to say almost a full day.
Well, 18 hours, that's a couple of full days. It would have been maybe 8 to 10 hours on preparation and
Mm.
planning, then 2 hours on a trial run, on a dry run,
Right.
uh, and then the balance on the final shoot. So yeah, with the cost structures and everything else, it actually paid to set up, shoot, run a quick check on a full process, and then
Mm.
run your shoot.
I hear
Now
what
it
you
was a
say.
slow and it was a slow and very mindful, very
Yeah.
careful process.
Because I've just realized my first camera ever, which is this Ashai Pentax, is now 50 years old and it's still working. It lives
Oh
with me in
yes.
my study, and there is a roll of film in it. And every now and again, I take it out and snap something. And one day, I will have the film developed and see what is on there because I have no idea, none. I don't remember when I started, and I'll know when it's finished, obviously.
Okay, that's absolutely cool, and a lot of people are working that way.
Mm,
But back in the day, because film had expiry dates and shelf lives
yeah.
and a tongue that deteriorated. I mean, you could take a piece of film that was, say, rated for what we used to call ISO, they now call ASA.
Mm.
a nominal 50. You could take that and expose it at 400.
Yeah.
And then when you pushed it through your processes, you would cook it. You would leave it in for a lot longer at higher temperatures
I
to
remember
push the
those
film.
nights with fondness.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, provided you knew the integrity of your chemicals
Yeah.
and the state of your film, you could get a fairly predictable result. Doing what you're doing, you won't get a predictable result, which
No.
isn't to say that you won't get a usable or a decent result. But the latent exposure on film does fade over
Yeah.
age.
Yeah. So let's move on from film and let's turn to the years of digital for Wolf. And I'm hoping, or I would like to believe that this is a digital image.
That is a digital image.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
one of the
well,
better wildebeest images I've seen, and all because of this fellow here. Just his stance when everybody else seems to be, oh, bloody hell, we have to walk all the way home again. And he's going, so what? I'm happy to be going home. I'm alive at the end of the day.
David, it's hard to define what creates an image that stands above the wallpaper.
Mm.
And you could argue that the difference between a brilliant image and any other image is not the difference between right and wrong, but the difference between right and oh, so nearly right.
I hear what you listen. Film is images are subjective, and what some people might see as brilliant, others are going, nah, it's relatively ordinary. Everybody takes pictures of whatever the topic of the image or the subject matter of the image is.
Well, let's write at the top of the page image quality,
Right.
heretofore to be known as IQ. And that is what everybody searches for. Now, how do you define IQ?
Mm.
There are so many things that go into it. There is composition, there is exposure, there is texture, there is tonal gradient, there is dynamic range, there is focal point, there are leading lines, there are unresolved foregrounds and backgrounds. The list is endless. And you can tick every single box and still land up with an image that is little more than wallpaper.
Yeah. But now
That's the magic.
I, I hear what you're saying, but what is the point for you when you look at one of your images? You've gone out, you've taken a range of photographs, maybe of this herd of wildebeest, and then you come back and you go through each one. What is the point that you say that's the image?
That is a really, really good question. And the answer is manifold, and I don't know. First of all, the experience of photography from the first photo that I took in a cage with a nickel mat off the Canary Islands in 1971 without any clue of what I was doing. Every picture I take is experimental, as much today as it ever was.
Right.
And the reason for that is having been an underwater photographer, a commercial photographer, a conceptual photographer, a wildlife photographer, a nature photographer, a wedding photographer, a kitchen sink photographer. I finally conclude that what I shoot is not things, I shoot light. And what it
Okay.
falls on is almost arbitrary. It's almost arbitrary. When I'm in the Kalahari,
Mm.
it's wildlife.
Right.
When I'm riding through the mist on the local byroads in the
Mm.
pre-dawn, it's an image like this.
Yeah.
Um, I'm shooting neither the river, which I'm busy crossing,
Mm.
nor the paddock in the background, nor the lone heifer standing in the corner there. What I'm shooting is the refraction of the pre-dawn light trying to break through the mist.
But with that in mind, Wolf, and using that as the basis, my question then is, can you teach somebody to see, in inverted commas, that image? Or is it something that has to be so natural to you that you and I are standing at the same point, looking at the same thing, may see two totally different images? Both may be correct, but you're shooting for one reason, I'm shooting for another. And a third
That's
person
the
might,
big,
might not see any of this and just ride on past.
that's absolutely true, but that is already so many steps removed from the fundamental.
Mm,
The fundamental, the fundamental is light. Let us interrogate light. We're not going to go down to the qubits, which are the particles that make up photons.
right.
Let's leave it at the atomic level. Light.
Okay.
Traveling at almost 300,000 kilometers a second means that when you shoot a picture, by the time that JPEG artifact shows up on the back of your camera, the light that illuminated it has traveled around the world more than 5 times. That is how dynamic the light is.
Mm,
And you and I and anybody else standing in the same spot, looking at the same image, we will already be looking for different qualities in what we're trying to get.
mm,
This brings us to the next really, really, really important thing. All of photography is about giving yourself permission and recognizing a scientific fundamental. And that is this, that your camera can see and record 3 stops of light. If you really know what you're doing, tick 3.5. That is your point of correct exposure, 1 stop underneath it, 1 stop underexposed, and 1 stop overexposed. Those stops, that is the range that your camera can record. Your eye sees that same image over 15 stops.
okay.
Let that sink in.
Yeah.
Let that sink in. That your photographic reality is a fraction of what is actually there being taken in by the eye.
Yeah.
Early photographers came up with, I'm sure you've heard of it, the zonal system of photography.
Mm,
The zonal system of photography was an early recognition of this fundamental truth, that the dynamic range that your eye comprehends is greater than the camera can capture. And you now have to choose where within that zonal range you want to expose a segment. Is it going to be high key? Is it going to be all in the shadows? Is it going to be high contrast in the middle? But fundamentally, that whole zonal system of photography was an early recognition of the difference between what the eye sees and what the camera can record.
but
So if
Wolf,
you want to take photos,
your average photographer doesn't even think about that. He looks at a
and that's why your average photographer produces wallpaper.
I just wish that there was a button on Facebook that if you didn't like an image, because often somebody posts a picture, the picture's rubbish, but their family and friends all go, "Oh, wonderful picture, beautiful one." I just want there to be a button that you can explode that image. If you push a button on your lap on your device, that image blows up on the screen. Gone, finished.
It's you've already got that. It's called the scroll button.
No, but scroll still leaves it there, Wolf. It doesn't, it takes it away from you, but it leaves it there for others. I want it gone. And people can do it to me. And I'm sure because I know you don't post every day, but the pictures you post and the words that go with them have meaning to you, and there's been thought put behind it. Um, just to take a photograph of the back of somebody's head going, "Oh, Bob was here as well," is not fun. Maybe for them. Maybe I'm being too subjective or too judgmental.
David, I fall completely in love with every picture. Excuse that. That's an Australian. Uh, yeah, that's my cattle dog. He lives here and he kind of
That's
runs the show.
not at all. I didn't hear a thing, so it's fine.
Oh, okay,
No,
perfect.
you can't
Um,
not fall in love with your own images because if you don't, nobody else will.
but it's like this. By the time I'm finished with it, and that means I've shot it, I saw it, I tried to catch it, and I have a little mantra. The mantra is maybe tomorrow I'll get it.
Right.
You can't capture the light. It's
Mm.
just going too far.
Yeah.
You can you can reach for it, but you can't catch it. And that's the magic of photography is that you keep going forever.
Yeah.
But having said that, um, you have to have a concept of what you're reaching for.
Yeah, because
And
otherwise
what
it's
you're
pointless. You
reaching
can't just walk outside and go, I'm going to shoot light. Light on what?
what you what you're reaching for is to find a way of representing in 2 dimensions and 3 stops
Mm.
what the eye sees in infinite dimensions over 15 stops.
Yeah. You know,
That's not just 15. Sorry.
no, I was going to say, just coming back to this particular image of the impala, I think these are one of the most under-recognized animals to shoot. And I don't mean for the pot, I mean photographically, because they're everywhere. And the problem is because they're everywhere, people tend to ignore them. Yet, if you go out in the early morning on an early game drive and you catch a ram's horns in that early morning light, they are stunning, really and truly. And this image of this explosion of impala, all heading off in different directions, but at some particular point they're going to rejoin, is joyous. It really and truly is, Wolf.
Somebody said, I don't know who, but the quote was, for all the world itself is art.
Okay.
And that's the point of it. That's the point of it. It's happening all around us all the time.
Mm.
And yes, here it's in the bush and it's a bush moment. But whether you're in the garden or the street or the supermarket,
Or even
whatever
doing
your
something
comfort
like
zone,
that.
yeah, macro,
Yeah.
macro. Well, the story behind my macro gig is my wife got very, very ill.
Mm.
And in her last days, I couldn't really go anywhere, but the garden was full of invertebrates.
Mm.
So I whipped out my old 24 millimeter prime glass that I bought in 1971. I reversed it and I put it on the end of an extension tube and I played with macro for the 18 months.
Wow. Okay.
And once again, what the light's falling on is almost arbitrary.
Mm.
It's the nature of the light that makes it a
Yeah.
luminous image.
Are there image?
Otherwise,
Yeah. No, sorry,
that's
finish
just
up.
a
I spoke over
that's
you.
just a 5 millimeter long crab spider
Yeah. And an even smaller fly.
and a 4 millimeter fly. Yeah.
I was sitting in our garden and I found a wasp dra dragging along a spider here, and I photographed the whole thing from start to finish, from the wasp stinging the spider to burying it. It was the most awesome mini
Yeah,
kill in the
and
garden.
she would have laid her eggs on it before
And
burying it.
yeah, listen, people think, oh, they have no means of defense or whatever. Those particular wasps are rather nasty. And the spider becomes food when the youngsters are born. Those of us who know. But what I was going to say, is there a moment when you look at an image and you go, it's not really right, but I don't want to delete it. I would rather store it on a hard drive. Or are you one of those people who can go through and be ruthless about what you get rid of?
I learned a lesson long ago in my commercial days, and the lesson
Right.
was this. You do a shoot, you shoot 3 or 4 variances of it.
Mm,
Each one in its own way has something. They're all perfect. None of them are ideal. You take them and you show them to the client. He says, "Oh, yes, I like the dynamic energy in one, but I prefer the look on her face in two. And I
mm.
actually like the way the light's falling off the hair on three. And it lands up. You've got to go and reshoot it because he lands up choosing nothing." So,
And then you
so,
delete all of those, or do you put them in a boo-boo
so what
box?
I do is I shoot a vast amount.
Mm,
I have the habit of every day's shooting goes into its own folder on that day.
right,
uh, so that I clear my work every day into its own folder. Um, I will then go through and I'll cherry pick, and that'll be probably the first week where I'll pull a couple. I don't know, depends how many images, but let's say I was shooting in the Kalahari, or let's say I went for a walk shooting wildflowers.
mm,
Um, I'll pull my 5 or 6 obvious shots that kind of choose themselves, and I'll process those, and then I leave the folder for a while.
right,
And then I'll go back and I'll do a more thorough comb and I'll pick out most of what's obviously workable. That's either it appeals to me or it might have value um, in a film library, Shutterstock or Getty or one of those places. And then I will delete most of the folder, but there'll be a few images that caught my attention, but it wasn't enough for me to drop everything and give it 5 or 6 hours of work.
right.
And then on my third plow through it, I'll pick those last images and process a few of them and then scrap the whole folder. So
Okay.
I delete a lot. I delete a hell of a lot.
I never did. And then I got to a point where I thought, I can't, I'm going to have to start learning to be ruthless because otherwise I'm going to end up with hard drives and cloud storage, you know, that is going to cost me a fortune just because I'm keeping rubbish.
Well, my workflow process is I have a folder called RAWs for PP, and
Mm,
everything goes into there. Then from there, I'll work on a picture, and once I've worked with it, I'll save it in RAWs, which are now worked RAWs,
right.
and I'll save a copy. I'll save an identical copy in JPEG high res,
Okay.
and then I'll save a low res version, which we're looking at here and now at
Mm,
72 DPI for distribution and web display and screen
yeah.
display. And if you want to steal that and print it at 300 DPI, it's going to be a very small postcard.
I was about to say it's going to come up as almost nothing. One pixel if
If you want to steal it as a postage stamp, help yourself.
there you go. I love this image of I love zebra stallions specifically having a go at each other. They are so photogenic. They really and truly are.
One of the critical elements of an image is
Mm,
dynamic energy.
right.
And one's always looking for either an action or a combination of lines or a contrast, but something that creates dynamic tension.
Mm,
And that obviously is what makes the image. It's
yeah.
it's just overflowing with dynamic tension.
And here again, one of your landscape images with sun coming through a cloud. Beautifully shot. The beautiful composition, really and truly.
You
Spectacular.
know, David, the way these Facebook and online algorithms butcher pictures, it should be criminal. However, it's not, and you can only work with what you've got.
Yeah.
That one I've got printed up at 500 by 750, and it's got 1,000 times more tonal range.
Yeah, I should
It's
imagine. But
very
as you say, it's for the masses. It's for this podcast, and it is what it is. And one of my favorite images, if there is a Jurassic Park a movie made in South Africa, they have to make one of these enormous guinea fowls. Forget T-Rex, forget the brontosauruses. These birds are scary. and
Can you
they will
enlarge?
attack you.
Can you enlarge that on your screen?
No.
That
No.
little plus arrow up top that I'm looking at there.
No. This is a new system, and I don't know what it will do if I do fiddle with it.
Okay. Okay,
Um,
because there is so much detail in that. You know, you can see the follicles there.
yeah,
Uh,
I can well imagine. I mean, you just have to look at the eye. It's oh wait, there we go.
there you go. There you keep
Yeah.
going. Keep going. There you go. I wouldn't go much more than that.
No,
But
that's scary.
yeah,
If you woke up with
on
this
the
looking at you,
original, which is 300 DPI, you can print that crisp 2 meters by 4 meters
wow.
if you wish to.
If you wish to. There's some, as I say, there's something about guinea fowl. Wolf, for people who are watching us chatting and who go, wow, I'd like to own one of those. Is there somewhere that they can buy your images? Or is there a way to buy your
They,
images?
you can indeed. I have a small display in town here in Underberg,
Mm.
but any of my images in any of my galleries on Facebook are available either framed or as a print.
Okay.
I do sell them a standard size of 400 by 600
Mm.
or 500 by 750, but it could be any size really.
Yeah.
There are some images which do have size limits on them, but I wouldn't sell a picture. I mean, if you ask for a picture and the original can't generate it, I wouldn't sell it to you that way.
Yeah.
All of my prints are sold in limited editions of 10.
Mm.
So once an image has sold 10 prints,
That's
um,
it.
the original gets retired. Um, and I have enough images that very few have I actually sold 10 of and retired. I think there's two or three.
It's like Michael Jordan's number 23 that's hanging up off the rafters in some baseball court somewhere because they retired the number. And then he came back. He decided he didn't like baseball. He came back to play basketball again. Wolf, what is your
No,
Facebook page? What is your Facebook page? Just Wolf Avni.
it's just Wolf. It's just Wolf Avni photographer, and I'm registered in Facebook as Gonzo Fishing. But under Gonzo Fishing, there's a page which is Wolf Avni photographer.
Now I know, now that you've mentioned it, and we spoke just before we started this chat about a mutual friend of ours. Now I know who Gonzo Fishing is because Hans mentions you a lot in some of his posts. And this is
But
now
I
closed the
taught him
circle.
everything he does. I taught him everything he doesn't know about photography.
Wolf, it's been wonderful chatting to you. We're running out of time. Go have a look, Wolf Avni on Facebook. You're looking for an image, you're looking for a gift, maybe for yourself, somebody special. I can highly recommend Wolf's work, really and truly. It is a cut above. And hang it on your wall. Your wallpaper will tear itself off and throw itself in the rubbish bin in disgust because it's so plain by contrast. Travel and things, sun destinations, iconic destinations with amazing experiences together with Travel and Things brought you this episode of In Conversation with Wolf. Thank you so very much for joining me. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. Cheers for now.